I am so inspired. It's just incredible, all of you. But something I've been really thinking about is the three doctors who are up here earlier this morning. So I'm inspired by Joel and the scientific method. And on the other side, also by Frank and his admonition to not wait for science for us to go and do what we know. So I want to do an experiment. Everybody stand up. Just get on up. And we're going to kind of play Mark in the middle. So we're just going to watch what happens in this experiment. But the first trial of the experiment is we're going to immobilize ourselves. Everyone get as stiff and tense as you possibly can. Flex your arms, lock your legs, joints locked, you can't possibly move. Now go ahead and just kind of try to move. You know, just keep flexing, nothing bending, nothing, yeah. And then just let it go. Yeah, exactly. And separate your feet. Don't worry about nudging your neighbor. It's fine. You all know each other. Put a little bend in your knees. And because the first rule of movement is, in order to move, if you want to move, you got to be movable. So you don't want to try to move when you're not able to move. So you start by relaxing, and then just roll your hips around side to side. Point your belly one side, and see, you guys are like good movers. So your arms are moving. The way you want to see if you're movable, when you move your belly, if the rest of you moves, then you're movable. So now we can run part 2 of the experiment. We're going to move easy. So just take a breath, like big breath in, fill up, and then exhale just easy. And then on a big inhale, arms up high, reach up strong. And then keep them on, exhale, just soften up a little, rock a little side to side. And then a big inhale, let's take a little lean to the right. And then exhale, soften up. And then big inhale, lift and lean to the left. And then exhale, soften up. And then big inhale, lift up high, reach up strong. And then exhale, just let it go. And give it a little wiggle. Now, which way did you feel better? You could sit. So, I think the thing that's just got me is we've heard so much about food as our medicine. And it's brilliant because what do we do? What does everybody eats? So it's so wonderful and empowering to hear that we can cure ourselves, we can bring ourselves to health by something that we all know how to do already. There's something that I think we can also make our medicine, which is movement. And I think that might even be first on the train track before we even get to food, because I think there's something that keeps us sometimes from, I know that I should eat kale. And I think after the last few days, I'm officially renouncing my status as a cookietarian. I know that I can't eat as much sugar. Yeah, I can't do it. In fact, I've been clean today. I've had no cookies, which was not true about yesterday. Big bowl of them. So I came in with no cookies. But, I know that I'm not supposed to have lots of sugar. I know that I'm supposed to eat my kale, and now I know about oysters, and I know about pumpkin seeds, and I know about all this stuff. But what's the block between knowing and doing? And I think it has something to do with your you view, how you look at yourself. And I think there's something that we do even more than eating, which is moving, and I think how you move is actually how you look at yourself. It's how you feel about you. And I think that there's something about making movement your medicine where you can really get into, all right, I'm gonna feel good, just like we did in the part B of that experiment. I'm gonna put movement across my life in a way that I really get into, my you view is, hey, I can get somewhere by feeling good. It's actually, I can accomplish something from there. And my you view is probably about the same as my worldview. So I'm going to get back to that. But the problem, I think, is we're often in some of the most critical times not in the driver's seat. We put ourselves in the back seat. So we're often in some of the most critical times, we're in the back seat for our own health. We're in the back seat for our fitness. We're in the back seat for all kinds of critical things in our life. And why is that? And sometimes I think we're waiting for the authority to tell us, hey, what's okay to do? Maybe it's someone with more education. Maybe it's someone who's wearing a white coat, or someone who works in a hospital. What is that authority going to tell me? The challenge with that is you are the single biggest variable in your own health. And so for us to be not in the driver's seat of our own health is a problem. We got to be in the driver's seat. It's not, don't see doctors. Brilliant things are happening. If I had known, the guys who have come through here, all the doctors who have come through here, I would have finished med school. I would be a doctor now. But the doctors I knew in the 90s weren't like the people who have come here. So, I think we need to be in the driver's seat. But there's an even deeper problem, which I was getting into before. It's, what's our you view? What's our worldview? Do we believe that we can get anywhere significant by trusting how we feel? Or even more, by feeling good? Because we've heard these amazing, inspiring, athletic triumphs here. And isn't it really true that the world is a tough place and it's going to be a struggle and you can't have a victory without a battle and you got to really get anything, got to push, force, and struggle? Isn't that just how it works in the world? Because if it was as simple as just wiggling and breathing a little, doing that, that would be too simple. How could that be the key to health? It would be too easy. But I think we might be making a mistake there. Because from how you move, from how you look at yourself, from breathing a little, from seeing that, hey, I could stand up right where I am, wherever I am, whatever I'm doing. I can feel good, and I can create a life just by breathing, just by changing how I move from like this to just anywhere. I could even decide right now that I'm gonna sit down because I don't wanna stand up also. I just wanna sit and roll. And maybe at a conference someday, we could even wheel these chairs out and I'll be sitting on the floor back to back. That's how much freedom we have. That's how much game-changing freedom we have to actually feel good. No matter what we're doing the work, but we have the freedom and the power to feel good no matter what we're doing. And, in a way, this is why we might often be in the back seat, because if that's not your you view, if that's not your world view, if you think push, force, and struggle is the only way to get to something real, then we might not be making movement our medicine. Let's look at how we exercise. So, when you exercise, is it just the most fun thing in the world? You're like, wow, I'm going for a run, and I'm Hillary, or I'm Rich Roll. Like, this is just, wow, no problem, 50 miles, is it like that? Or, okay, for the rest of us, is it like, wow, this is miserable. But I got to push, force, and struggle and break on through to the other side. Because somewhere, I know that I have to exercise 3 times a week. I know I'm supposed to eat good food. I know I'm supposed to do, but it's just not fun at all. I'm like tense just to begin with, and then I'm just forcing and struggling. I'm lifting weights. And there's a problem with that, which is we actually get less athletically capable that way. We injure ourselves that way. We are practicing. This is the most important thing. What we're practicing is, okay, I feel that. I don't like it. But I'm just going to ignore how I feel. What I feel is not important. It's not relevant. I just have to know that force and struggle is going to help me break on through. And it's not working. And a big part of that is if we're going to make movement our medicine, you have to see that it's not just breaking on through. Stress, as many people have said, is a huge part of the equation here. Letting it out of your body. Stress out, instead of when we exercise, stress in, give me more. The idea of making medicine your movement begins with letting the stress go out. So the answer to this, and there is an answer, is we can change how we move. And that's a beautiful thing because, eating, we do a lot of it. We are moving all day long. We get well based on how we move. We can get sick based on how we move. We can cure all kinds of things based on how we move. And it's wonderful because rather than go to war with our bodies, we change our you view, we change our world view in a way, we can make peace with our bodies. We can see, oh wow, it's better to make peace than war, and I can actually get more that way. And that's pretty amazing, and we're going to get into how to do that. So let me step back a little bit and say, well, how did I get here? How did I start talking about movement as medicine? So I was a weird, odd little kid. I was home. You didn't have to laugh. I was homeschooled mostly, and so as a result, I got to have like a little bit different kind of curriculum, a lot on Eastern movement, a lot on Eastern philosophy, and a lot on healing. And then while I was learning about enabling bodies, I was also, on the flip side of that, which goes along with Eastern tradition, learning how to disable bodies. So I took about a 15-year dive into competitive martial arts. And then when I headed for university, I thought, well, I want to take a turn in the enabling side. You know, I really want to get into healthcare. So I studied mind-body medicine at Harvard and then kept going at Oxford. But, you know, something wasn't sticking for me. Something wasn't, I'm a dropout, you know. I did not keep going. I did not finish any sort of medical degree. And, you know, from Oxford, I discovered, oh, there's some pretty good hills out there, so I started climbing hills. And then I discovered there were some mountains out there, so I started climbing mountains. And then the internet happened, and I started doing internet companies. And then I even worked in a steel mill for a while. I wasn't actually cutting steel, I should say. I was working in the office. But, you know, I was at a, I would like to say it the other way, but, you know, so I was working in a steel mill in the middle of Pennsylvania. And then, you know, it took me about 10 years, but then I met Tara Stiles, and we started doing all kinds of yoga together. And we basically took her background in ballet and choreography, and then things that I had learned in Tai Chi and Eastern healing and mind-body medicine, put it all together, and in the last number of years, created a system of movement called Strala that we thought would be helpful to people. But I guess the big question for me, I mean, I have it for myself, is why did it take me so long to get back there? And you know, I think for me what was sticking, the sticking point was with my brother. So I'll give you his story. It's 1994, and we have a problem. He was at Yale Architecture, and he checked himself in. He was in all kinds of pain, so he went to Student Health Services. And they said, you're fine, no problem. And so we went out with some antibiotics, and a week later, you check back and, oh, I'm still in pain, and by the way, everybody in our family dies of cancer. So don't you think you should have a look at that? No, you're fine. Let's just change the antibiotics. So we kept pushing and pushing within a sort of a narrow bandwidth of freedom. We got him to a better hospital, and then the message was different from the authority. It was, oh, stage 4. Let's throw everything we have at this. You have cancer. You might die. So that didn't go well. The treatment, as many of you are familiar, is miserable even when it works, but it wasn't working, and it was very miserable. So now the message was, you are going to die. And you know, it wasn't until then that we realized, okay, right at death, then okay, we have all kinds of freedom. You know, now we could just do whatever we want. So what we did is we found a place in Mexico where basically the aim wasn't cure, the aim was we're gonna make you feel good. And so following feeling, he actually, in a matter of months, complete remission, everything's fine. We came back, went to Mass General again, we're all excited with the doctors and said, look, he's fine. And they're like, wow, can't explain that. Let's throw some stuff at it, make sure it's really gone. And so my brother went from feeling great to dead in a matter of months. And as many people have cautioned, I am not saying don't go to doctors. Doctors are amazing. What we accomplish in medicine, especially with doctors here, just live with them. They're incredible. But what I am saying is we need to be in our own driver's seat. And so how do we put ourselves in that seat? And you know, here it is. You got to make feeling your goal. So feeling good, feeling you, just feeling. So not your mile time, not how much weight you lift, not any sort of measurable goal, just feeling. And here's the thing, if you make feeling your goal, you get into your body that way, you're going to lift more weight. You're going to be faster. Your mile time will go down. Everything's going to change. You also won't get injured as much. When you do, you'll heal a lot faster. You won't get sick as much. When you do, it won't knock you out. Based on connecting with your body and from feeling good, that's how you're going to change your health and life. You put feeling good into your movement mantra, how you go about moving in your body, how you relate to you. That's what's going to make movement your constant everyday medicine. Now, that's a nice theory, but how do we make that real? What are the steps that we can just put that into practice? So let's do that. And there's 4 steps. First is feel. Second is believe. The third is respond. And the last is do it all over again, repeat. So feel, believe, respond, repeat. So what does that mean? Well, the first one we did. In order to feel your body, if you're here, all you're going to feel is stress. You're not going to feel much, and your body is telling you stuff all the time. It's a wonderful chatterbox. It's just incredible. It's full of messages. But if all you are is stress in, stress in, stress, you're just going to feel that one note, that one message, which is stress. So the first thing we have to do, and this is neat about movement as medicine, there's so many avenues into anything. If you just take your avenue in as your body, you can work with your body. And since I'm a mind-body medicine guy, I see mind-body, same thing. You work on one component, it ripples across your whole life. So the first thing is, in order to feel, you got to relax. And you can do this right in your chair. You can do it anytime you want, any time of day, anywhere you are, anything that's going on. You can always, even in hardest challenges, relax your body to where you can hear your body, where you can feel. Second is believe. What does that mean? Well, you got to believe that what your body's telling you is relevant, that you are worthy of responding to that it's not just, hey, I got a worldview and I don't care what you're saying, I got to break on through to the other side. You got to go into belief, and there's a couple of paths for belief. One is, if you got it, it's really neat, you could just have faith, hey, I'm worth it. And the other is more of a scientific one. If you keep looking again and again and again, and how was it when I did hard things the hard way? How was it when I ignored how I felt? How did that go for me? And then you look side by side with what you're doing now, which is, hey, I'm really paying attention to how I feel. I'm feeling good when I move. I'm practicing that in my movement, and everything I do all day long, I'm moving, and I'm responding. Then belief is going to come along because you're your own best laboratory. You're going to know it. And then so the third one, respond. Well, how do you respond? Practice. Practice makes perfect. Again and again and again. You've got the feeling, so you hear it. You're believing that it's worth it, that it makes a difference, the right thing to do to respond to how you feel. And then you just got to practice. You got to say, hey, forget the rules. There's not a right way to run. There's not a right way to lift weights, or not a right way to do a yoga pose. Just your own way, your own rules, your own approach, all based on you feeling you and responding to how you feel and creating your own life entirely, your own athletics, your own movement, your own everything out of entirely how you feel. That's going to get you into, and then you have to repeat the whole thing again and again and again. So now you're going to have a cycle of connecting with your body, making movement your medicine. And here's the one thing to remember, I think. So we can change the whole health game by changing how we move. You can also change how you feel about you by changing how you move. And it's from there that a whole cascade of healthy acts happens. It's how we get on that kale train. I think it's maybe the first step along the way. How do we go from knowing that it's the right thing to doing? Because believe me, with my bowl of cookies, it's like that's an important thing. It's like I know stuff. And I think it's in this thing, this first step, something we do even more than eat is we move. And if you move in a way that feels good to you, you're always finding your own way to do things, then you're putting it in your body. You're doing it in a way that's really tangible to practice. You put it in your body, you're going to have it in your life. And that changes everything. So let's make movement our medicine. Thank you.